The Department of Education has launched a probe after a video allegedly showing an altercation between a teacher and a student went viral. In the video, the teacher and the learner can be seen physically fighting in full view of other learners. Videos depicting incidents of this nature are not uncommon and have made their way onto social networking sites as students record them and share them online. To discuss this, I'm joined by Basil Manuel, who's the Executive Director of Naptosa. Basil, good to speak to you as always. What is your perspective on the recent incident at Glenvista High School, where a teacher and a grade 9 pupil are involved in a physical altercation in the classroom?
Hugo, thanks for having me. At first, I think it's symptomatic of the breakdown of discipline that is happening in a lot of schools. It may not have played itself out in this particular manner, but I think a lot of schools are having problems, particularly our high schools. And this particular incident, of course, does show what happens when things tipple over the edge, when the teacher loses control, but also where the teacher has been forced by what must be extremely aggravating circumstances to then engage in a brawl. But this particular one is worrying because we see the teacher and the child exchanging punches, but we see a third individual throwing a desk at the teacher. And this says that it was a bigger brawl than what that little clip showed. And that is extremely worrying from a variety of angles.
So let's talk about the rights of both the learner and the teacher. What are those rights? What are the rights of a teacher if a learner is disruptive in class, does not listen, and so on? Because I'd imagine that there was obviously provocation, and with it, there was I suppose, a challenging of one or the other's rights in this incident.
Hugo, that's exactly where the problem lies. Many teachers feel that their rights end when the rights of the child, who is not actually simply just a child, but a child that is provoking a particular situation, when their rights kick in. But of course, we always remind people that all of us have rights. And the right of the teacher is a right to a safe working environment, is the right to an environment where they don't feel threatened. At the same time, the rights of the child are that the child will not be subjected to any denigrating language, etc., but also that the child would be safe in that very environment. Now, what we lack from where we are sitting is knowing what happened before the incident unfolded. And that is why having a very good investigation becomes so essential. And an investigation which goes in blindly and is willing to hear both sides without prejudice. And that is, for us as a union and as a representative of teachers, extremely important.
Well, I suppose the question to us, Basil, is that how should teachers handle situations of extreme provocation or aggression from learners while maintaining professional conduct and adhering to disciplinary standards?
Hugo, that's a very difficult one. Our advice even is a difficult advice. We say, you are the person that has the most to lose, because in the final analysis, you will be judged and your job is on the line. So the best is to take a step back, not to escalate whatever situation there is, but rather to find ways to de-escalate it. Now, having said that, I know that sometimes that is extremely difficult. Somebody is pushed and they're at the end of their tether, and the provocation is of such a nature that you want to lash out, or somebody lashes at you first. And this is where the problem then begins to just simply run its own course. Nobody is then in control. So we say to our teachers, take a step back. And whatever you do, don't get physical. Because as soon as you get physical, you are no longer in control.
The scale seems favoured, or seems to be tipping slightly towards the learners, because you suggest that it is the teacher who has everything to lose and not so much the learner. So in this instance, where a learner attacks a teacher and the teacher does not retaliate, what are the likely considerations on dealing or the likely penalties that the learner is going to face?
Remember, Hugo, the same school had an incident exactly like that, where there was a youngster that jumped on the teacher's back, and the teacher shrugged off the youngster, was leaving the classroom, and then a broomstick and so on was being thrown at the teacher. Now, that teacher was special in the sense that they managed to keep their cool in a very difficult situation. Most human beings can't. And as soon as you lose that edge, you lose that ability to keep your cool, you are on the losing end. And yes, the cards are stacked against you because you are the adult, you are the person in charge. However, there are always aggravating circumstances and circumstances that may show that you will push to the point of no return. So that is why the quality of an investigation is so important. But Hugo, it speaks to the culture at the school, the culture of discipline and where we are at now. And I've already foregrounded this to say it is not about this school only. It's about a number of schools going through similar issues. Unless there's a culture where the parent buys into it, and by extension, the child of the parent, the teacher, as well as the school itself and the department, unless those are all involved. Because the very teacher, the very parent who today is shouting out, they want blood because their child was threatened and almost physically injured with a chair, is the same parent that will complain about discipline tomorrow and why there is no discipline at the school. Now, it can't happen in a vacuum where one set of things only happens. Everybody has to play their part to address a problem like this.
Basil, you told us one half of your story at Glenvista with what transpired previously. What happened to the learner that attacked the teacher who didn't retaliate?
The learner gets suspended. And sometimes, of course, depending on the severity, remember, we still have to ensure that the learner does get an education. It's a constitutional right. And very often, such a learner is then sent to another school. Worst case scenario is when the same teacher has to return to their class and face the same perpetrator. And then it's the issue of trying to regain the respect, not only of that child, but of the whole class that were witnesses to this. But in fact, it goes further. It's the entire school, because everybody has seen this video and has seen what has happened to you. You've got to face your peers as well. And of course, they would have some judgment, whether it is spoken or not. So worst case scenario is that the child is suspended, but the child returns to school. Expulsion is in the severest of cases, and even then the child's right to an education is still there.
Basil, Manuel, appreciate your time, Executive Director of Naptosa.